Hi there, welcome to Gnostic Vlog Confessio 30, and I can't believe it's been 30 weeks since I started this vlog, and possibly a couple of weeks before that starting this YouTube channel, and before that starting my free website, um, which I don't think anybody actually visits, which is a pity because there's actually a free book there if you want to download it, which is quite nice. Um, but obviously, yeah, I'll have to start paying for that network or website if I'm going to have a lot of downloads. Uh, I don't know. I think the whole project's been a bit of a flop, really. um, I don't think that there's much of a Gnostic community there out there, really. Or if there is, it's very sort of cliquey and already sort of sewn up. I don't think there are many new people really interested in Gnosticism. I think the word Gnosticism, a lot of people associate with magic with a K, which is Crowley's magic, the Western magical tradition, and they have their own sort of setup, really. Other people associate Gnosticism with something a little bit kind of threatening, really, and but also sort of conventional at the same time, or at least not as radical as one could be. And sort of people that say they're left-hand path would describe themselves as Gnostics, and which is just about anybody that isn't born again Christian or Sunni or Shia extremist or any other sort of extreme religious cult out there, which people sort of dismiss as right hand path. And But because left hand path is about gnosis, it's about basically you know what you believe is true, and you know what you know, if you know what I mean. And so basically, people that are into Gnosticism or think it's magic are only interested in practical things. They're only interested in give us a method by which we can attain Gnosticism, attain gnosis, so that we can say that I know what I know, if you know what I mean, and then you sort of just leave it at that, and go about your business. Now, of course, the ethics. I mean, you don't need any religion or gnosis for that matter for ethics. You can derive that completely from philosophical principles. So once you've got ethics, and once you sort of got this kind of strange, um, mysterious gnosis, which you've attained, or you think you've attained through some sort of method, and of course there are hundreds of methods out there. Then you basically that's all you need. So I should have really just done two videos: one explaining what gnosis is, and the other explaining how to attain it. Boom, two videos, and then I should have just treated YouTube like a sort of like a social media, and gone on Facebook and just spammed the hell out of everybody, just sort of promoting my method, and perhaps a blog associated with the progress of that method in my own life, because if you can't heal thyself kind of thing. If it doesn't work for you, then why should it work for anybody else? Which I don't think quite follows, actually. Um, but instead, I got very deeply ingrained in what might call philosophical theology, the philosophical theology of Gnosticism. And philosophical theology is deadly dull, really. It's basically just looking for consistency within a religious paradigm, which nobody actually wants to look for anyway, because people are quite happy to be inconsistent and illogical and irrational. So, and indeed, I was cautioned by somebody at the very start of this project against even trying to understand Gnosticism rationally, using rational, analytical, reductionist principles or philosophical principles. And so from the very jump, really, there wasn't much that I could contribute, apparently, to Gnosticism, other than, I suppose, grudgingly, a method which actually works. So you put your money where your mouth is, and you say, this is a method for attaining Gnosticism, follow this, you'll attain Gnosticism. And people say, what's Gnosticism? Or what's Gnosis? And you just have to say, well, suck it and see. Try the method, and just make notes, or make a note of what happens to you. And whatever happens to you is Gnosis. And that's it, all about it. So sort of looking for consistency or rationality within Gnosis, obviously, I mean, granted, that's not an issue, really. What is an issue is Gnosticism, which is the study of the Nag Hammadi corpus of writings on one hand, and also understanding certain Gnostic principles on the other, as sort of cobbled together over the centuries by people commentating on Gnosis, on Gnosticism. So, of course, as I said before in another video, there is a confusion to begin with between Gnosis, which is anything that you want it to be, and Gnosticism, which is anything that you can argue about, based on what is actually known about the religion or the spiritual path of Gnosticism. It's a simple thing like Buddha. You can, the Buddha nature, that's sort of beyond discussion. But Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, Zen Buddhism. These are things that can be categorized and discussed and argued over. Some controversial ideas like Buddhism is actually theistic and not atheistic, and discuss that. And that's deadly dull as well, really, because again, all people want to know is mindfulness. And how to attain the Buddha nature through mindfulness, and that's it. That's sort of one or two videos, and I don't know how many videos I've done, like I don't know, it's 100 or something like that, and and all basically not really saying what people want to know, which is how to get from A to B, not to discuss what A is and what B is, if you see what I mean. So I don't know really where this is all going. I'm having fun anyway. I enjoy making my videos, even if nobody else particularly enjoys watching them, which is certainly the case. A lot of many videos on YouTube are basically for the people that are making the videos, really not for the audience. But on the other hand, some people through social media, I suppose, have a little sort of following of people who might be following their personality, actually, rather than what they're saying, which is also a natural thing to occur. And But people don't like Brits' voices either. Brits are not very popular around the world, perhaps even less popular now than Americans, especially now since most Brits should carry a little yellow flag over their heads and ring a bell saying unclean, unclean, because they're diseased with COVID-19. And nobody wants them in their country, and nobody wants Brazilians or Americans, for that matter, either, but particularly Brits, because, Brits sort of get around all over the place in business and pleasure, and you're going to run into a Brit who's probably carrying or being a vector for the disease, and you're likely to give it to your granny or as a result of meeting a Brit. And as for the Brits themselves and their own country, this is why a lot of Brits like me are not actually in Britain, because we can't stand our own compatriots. We can't stand other British people. So we normally get the hell out of here. And we get hell out of the UK, and we stay out of the UK. We never go back. We stay, we live in France and Ireland and I don't know, anywhere else in the world, rather than Britain, because we just don't like British people, and we're Brits ourselves. So I don't know really. I mean, I've got couple of other videos on which I'm sort of saving up. And I suppose a couple of the videos are really sort of clickbait videos as well, actually. Ones that I thought were too naughty to put up. But people like clickbait. They actually like controversial videos. But you've got to be careful because the management of this network don't like controversial videos, and they don't like freedom of speech. Sort of. There are limits to what they can tolerate. So you have to be a little bit careful, really. It always is as it was, basically. When you're a publisher, you have to be careful what you publish, basically. And that's always been true and always will be true. And this network is a publisher, even if it's made up of millions of publishers with their network channels, YouTube channels. YouTube itself is a publisher, so what they do basically does basically does come back to them. And even you'll notice this thing that they have to say whether the video is suitable for children or not. That now is a law in the USA or somewhere, and they are under that regulation, so they have to abide by that law. Even if the network itself is not based in the USA, which I think it is, but Google have to abide by the laws of the USA. And this mad law has come out now, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but they still have to abide by it. So, I mean, so I will carry on making videos, from time to time. I've got to finish my one on the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, which you would think would bring some people in who are interested in the Kabbalah. But perhaps I don't know enough about the Kabbalah. Well, at least I think I know more than I actually do know. And there are lots of people out there who know a great deal about a lot of things, and they are sort of doing their thing on YouTube, and as I say, have their particular followers. I suppose I'm sort of comparing life to how it used to be when I had another channel which had quite a few followers, 1,700 followers, and that was a very, very niche market and a very niche community, but a very, very tight community actually, as it turns out, and a very loyal one. People put up with quite a lot of content which shouldn't have been put up with, really, and finally wasn't put up with as far as Google management was concerned, and yet a lot of people were kind of fascinated by it, really. And wanted to see what was coming next, which I don't really think people are with this channel, because it's deadly, deadly dull, and not at all fun, basically. And fun is what it's all about, really. I mean, if you can't have fun, what's the point, really? And so, gnosis and humour and fun sort of go together. I don't see why they do go together. I think Gnosticism is certainly a very miserable religion, and quite life denying, really. Ultimately, as Buddhism is, in fact. But Buddhism could have been sort of, I don't know, sexied up, tarted up for the West. And Buddhists don't really go on very much about how they deny life altogether, and they go on about the wonderful things about mindfulness, which is just a method that you adopt to make yourself calmer about life. But in fact, Buddhism is just as miserable as Gnosticism about life, really. It is a very, very pessimistic view of life, and it favours funerals rather than weddings, and don't have children. Whatever you do, you're just bringing in more suffering into the world by having children. And from Gnostic point of view, you certainly are, because you're bringing another soul into being trapped in this veil of tears and this veil, um, So, but people don't really tell you about the very grim, pessimistic side of Buddhism or Gnosticism, for that matter. And I think really a cheerier channel is sort of called for as far as Gnosticism is concerned. Which doesn't really go on too much about denying life and matter and living, and goes on about, this wonderful method will make you healthy, wealthy, and wise, sort of thing, which is what people really want to know about, understandably, because being healthy, wealthy, and wise is what this world is all about. It's the objective of this world, not, as you might think, to escape this world altogether. People have long since given up transcendentalism, really, in favour of healthy, wealthy, and wise. And I mean, I'm not saying that in a facetious, bitchy kind of way. I completely understand, why people would want that, and I have no problem with that. Really, I don't. And so that then begs the question: well, why are you into Gnosticism, which is basically so pessimistic about life, even though it tries to conceal its pessimism, as it were? Well, I don't really know. I just like arguing, basically. I like thinking. I like analysing. I like arguing. I like making a case. I like advocating, certain philosophies and religious paradigms. Um, and that's what I like to do, really. But I don't think many people would like to do that, really, nowadays. People just want to be healthy, wealthy, and wise. They just want love, luck, and loot. And why not? There's going to be precious little of love, luck, and loot going around in the future, with COVID-19, for example. And there wasn't much before that with the 2008 recession, world recession, or world depression, in fact, which is now going to get deeper and deeper. So, I can really understand why people don't want to think about transcendence. They just want to think about survival. And I really, really understand that. And my heart goes out to people that are more interested in love, luck, and loot than anything else, because you'd have to be really, given the situation that we all find ourselves in, or a lot of us find ourselves in. But on the other hand, obviously, rich people will always survive because they always do. And not only that, but not some rich people will even take the opportunity to get richer as a result of COVID-19, not poorer. Which is natural as well. I mean, all animals, all species are opportunistic. So when they see an opportunity, they will exploit it, obviously, and that's the lower worlds. That's what happens here as well. That's how people go on. And except for a brief sort of few thoughts about ethics, and whether people should be ethical, or whether whether the end really does justify the means, which is a debate that continues, I suppose, really. And people think about my end. My end is survival, so I'm going to hold up my end, my survival end, but and the survival of my family beyond anything else, really. So, tell me how to survive this planet, and I'm kind of be interested in it. Which brings this whole discussion briefly and neatly round to the actual Grail itself, because this is supposed to be a channel about Grail Gnosticism. And I suppose the Grail does represent healing. And it does, well, not suppose, it actually does represent healing. It represents abundance. It represents an outflowing of vital energy to those who receive it. It's got something. It's to do with the Eucharist and the blood of Christ as well, and flowing from the cup, and transforming or transubstantiating into the actual blood of Christ and the actual grace of God therein. And so people will say, that's what I kind of signed up for when I was thinking about the Grail. I actually was thinking about the flow of abundance and of grace, which would manifest in love, luck, and loot. And granted, I'm not going to kind of go after love, luck, and loot in a sort of sorcery kind of way. But when abundance arrives, I'm going to receive it with two open hands. You know what I mean? And I thought that's what the Grail was about. It's actually about love. It's about abundance. And spiritual abundance, but also a good sort of, but also survival in this world, basically. And you need abundance to survive in this world. And if you basically are just groveling around in the mud, even such that you have will be taken away from you, as it says in the scriptures. So, which is kind of harsh, but kind of true as well. So I really, after 30 weeks of doing this, I'm having a great time anyway, even if nobody else is. And I'm not really bothered about other people anyway, actually. I'm really, really not bothered about I think one shares one's ideas, and whoever is meant to take those ideas and run with them, or to share their ideas back with you, which has happened on this channel as well, obviously, and very well from one YouTube user, of course, and that's so far. And that's great. But beyond that, I rather would like to let go of ambition, basically, because ambition is the root of all evil. It's not money; it's actually ambition, and ambition, is a great tempter. It comes and says to you, what's the point of doing all this if you're not getting power and not getting recognition anywhere. And that's just it. I don't want ambition. I don't want recognition. I don't want to be a cult leader. I really, really don't want that. Strange as it may seem to the person that's trying to tempt me to want these things, they can't see it because they're not Gnostic, I suppose. But I can actually see it. And so basically, the whole of this video, really, I mean, what has it been about? It's been about somebody who says, oh, I feel tempted by worldly ambition. And then he says, well, actually, I don't feel tempted by worldly ambition, so I don't really care about this YouTube channel or about my book or whatever. I really, really don't care. So I suppose it's a sort of confession, as it were, and a sort of cleansing of my own sort of tendency towards temptation, which of course is everybody's tendency. Well, we'll just take it from here, I suppose. What else can I say?